I'm really glad to meet you all, guys. And I also want to thank all of you, especially the company, for having me here. And thank you for the invitation. I'm really always wanted to talk about today's topic, but I never had a chance to. So here I am. And my name is Artur. I'm working for a company called Acquio as a software engineer, building high-scale mobile applications with React Native. My previous experience is also based building native applications with Swift, Java, Kotlin, and everything else that you could just imagine. So at our company, we do lots of front-end related stuff, bringing our work to open source, and we really enjoy that. So yeah, once I opened the world of open source also for me, I just felt in love with React Native and its community. So that's why we are here today talking about one of the most exciting UI libraries that we have built and I have had the chance to contribute to. It's UI Kitten and Eva Design System. The title of my talk is Dive into React Native UI Kitten, but because UI Kitten itself is actually a part of a bigger project, it's a part of design system, we are actually going to cover 3 topics today. And by the way, please drop a plus sign if you're already using those libraries in your app so that I can have some analytics and be happy that you listeners are here listening to me. So first and first, we're going to dive into the ecosystem of Eva Design and talking about Eva-related products and how we actually can use them in our app. Because I'm actually pretty sure that most of you guys have heard about UI Kitten, but not of the other cool stuff that Eva can provide. I'm going to show you how we can actually use those products in our app to build more exciting and also looking user interfaces by making it more branded and customize it for the needs of our customers. And lastly, I also show you some of the great examples of how we can integrate some of the third-party libraries with our products. But before we start, let me tell you a quick story. So in this story, I would like to cover the knowledge how had actually everything started. So I will be talking about how Eva Design System was born. So back in 2018, Acquio, the company I'm working for, had already had several open source products and its demo applications. And that was actually great because we could use our own UI libraries to boost up our development process of front-end apps. And by the way, those libraries were also used by other thousands of developers worldwide, so thank you. There was actually one global issue that we really wanted to solve, and it was about, we didn't really have any single source of truth for our web and mobile applications, causing them to look different and inconsistent. So that's why we really started to look into possible solutions, and the only one we really saw was that we really should to integrate any sort of design system to our products. But we really didn't want to integrate any existing solutions like material design because we also wanted to create something new and fresh and also share it to the open source community. We ended with a new layer of products, and so far, this was an Eva Design Family, which actually consists of three products. So first one is a design system itself, available in both Sketch and Figma files. And to actually use it, you should just go to eva.design webpage, find that, and be able to download it for zero price. By the way, there are lots of other products that we also share. Well, yeah, so may actually find it here. Well, yeah, that was about design system. It actually consists of a structured view of the components that we use in our UI libraries. And by knowing how it's important to follow the design rules in your applications, this was actually the reason why we made that for free. The second, the color generator, it's actually a tool where you can create an awesome color palettes for your app. So being a developer, I always know how it's painful to pick the right colors for your application. And well, the color generator doesn't care about it at all. So it only wants you to pick one primary color and do the rest of the things for you. Just sure, 100% sure of the graceful color selection for your app, because it's actually a deep learning tool. So the last one, it's an icon package. We actually share up to, I guess there are around 500 open source icons created specifically for Eva. Don't skip on using them in your app just because it will make your app much more beautiful and user-friendly. So, by the way, those products were given on its start a product hunt achievements on this platform. So be sure of the quality we share for you. I will not bore you anymore with product descriptions and all of the markets and stuff. So let's just jump into the code and see how can it work all together. But how do we start? So yeah, with UI Kitten, we actually provide 2 template packages available for React Native command line interface to start your project. You may use both TypeScript and JavaScript template packages based on your preferences, but use TypeScript for better development experience, but we'll not start a holy war thread here, but okay. So to start your UI Kitten project, you should just copy and paste this simple command line to your terminal and run it, and that would be it. Once we initialize the project, we'll see somewhat like this, and this is actually my demo project. We can also interact with the slides like that. Be sure that, for example, here we can just switch our theme from light to dark. Well, yeah. So let's jump to the code and see what happens there. Okay. So one of the most important things to understand in UI Kitten is that we wrap our entire application provider component, which is actually here. And we use that to pass through Eva styles for all of the nested components rendered within our app, specifically for UI Kitten components, such as buttons, inputs, and so on. Another cool thing here is that we can also define a theme for our app. So by default, it's light with standard blue colors of Eva, but we also made changes to dark like this. So let's see what happens here. Yeah, it works. It's really cool. And yeah, but let's say it's cool, but let's see what happens if we want to define more complex UI here. So here we see a sign-up form, which actually consists of 2 input fields. Here, let me change it to light back. We also see, in my example, a header image, which is actually kind of pinky colors. So let's try to build something custom for our app. Let's go back to our color generator tool. Let me find that. Eva colors. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, we could just pick our branded color, download our theme with this export button as JSON, copy it to our code base, and that would be it. But actually, since I have already everything prepared for this demo app, let's just see how it works. So yeah, we just spread Eva light theme. And we add our sweet theme with pinky colors here to combine both themes. Oh, it didn't work. Yeah, should also apply spread operator. Yeah, this is how it will look like. Quite awesome, I guess. So let's jump to our demo view to see what happens here. I believe I could make it readable because I tried to place as less components as I could here. So it actually consists of inputs and checkbox and button here. But the cool feature of UI Kitten is that we don't really need to create separate text components just to define a label for our input. So kinda also can create bottom line for this input just by creating just by passing the caption prop. So how it works here. No. Why? So, oh well, it didn't work for a reason. Okay, caption. Let me try. Yeah, it worked. Cool, thanks. So, well, we also can place our captions, labels. That's really cool. But I hope that most of you guys are already familiar with such cool frameworks as Formic, which help us a lot for building validatable forms in React and React Native. So I use that here to demonstrate how can we actually integrate that with UI Kitten and validate our apps and present some maybe validation errors during the sign-up flow. So let's see how it works. So now we don't use any state-specific logic here. So we can just input our email and password here, but the checkbox is not pressable itself. I don't really want to use this React use state hooks here. So I built a hooks specifically for Formic. Well, so here we may notice that we use Formic context. And the Formic context provides us values that user has right now on the screen. So in this example, when we, for example, will use our input, the value will be controlled fully by. We also can provide the status prop to our input field to make it, let me show you actually, to make it interactable, presenting the current status of our input to let our users know whether it was failed to validate or something like that. So basically it works like this. We can say the validation was successful, but it didn't work. Well, let's try using Kitten. So we define our hook, which is called use input, and here we pass identifier for that field. So let's say it would be, because we actually want to input an email, and we name it, let's say, email input. And say we actually will do for the password. And we also do the same for our checkbox, which asks us to accept the terms and conditions. So we call it terms, and terms checkbox. So what happens here is that our hooks returns as a configuration for our input fields and checkboxes. So this is actually a props. So we can use our email input and password input by spreading those to our inputs. Email inputs, and we'll paste that. So, password input. Terms checkbox. And we also want user not being able to press sign up button, so we say that it's not pressable. Disabled. While our form is not, doesn't contain any valid values. Perhaps is valid. I guess it should work like that. Well, the button is disabled, of course, because we didn't input any email, which is required by U package, which provides actually expression for our email, constantly checking it for the valid input so that we can see the input field changes its status to a red one until we enter a valid email. So right now it's valid, it's cool. But we also require to input a minimum of 8 symbols password. So 123, 123, 123, 8. Okay, that's cool. The button still be still disabled because we don't accept the terms and conditions. We press that and boom. So here we got our form fully validated. And that's actually how we can integrate our UI Kitten components with Formic. So just to go through all of the steps one more time, we are actually able to use Formic context, which defines our form values provided with Formic. So why do we need an identifier for a field here? It's just because we can accept a proper field name through the Formic values, because the Formic value is actually an object, and we, let's say, can accept the email field like this. But since JavaScript provides us another way, we can accept that through the identifier. And what we say is that our input field should have a danger status until it's valid. So if Formic has some errors and if errors doesn't apply for a current value which is not defined, then we should make it danger. And then we should also display a caption here. Wait a second. In this example, we manually passed it to input. So to clarify, yeah, Formic also uses a caption of our UI Kitten input field and pass the validation error to our caption. So that's really cool. And of course, we define our own change text property to set the current value to Formic and to make it able to validate everything once again. Same applies to our checkbox. And finally, we can make our form validatable. So that's really cool. I really like this pattern of integrating components to Formic. I actually use in the production app that I am currently working for. But let me show you another cool feature of UI. So since we are able to use a theme for that to define the colors, but what if we actually want to define the same way font family for all of the text displays in our app? It's just quite simple. We should just need to define our mapping and say, hey, mapping, please use text for font family for that. Text font family. And I actually have a special font for that, which I really love, Sarah. And yeah, just clarify. Yeah, so by refreshing our app, we see that it was applied, which is cool. And how it actually works is that our UI Kitten connects to Metro Bundler, and with a simple configuration of our app, we define the path to custom mapping.json, which was actually used during this presentation. And it's constantly watching for changes in this mapping.json. And once it sees that we defined our text font family, it will apply it for all of the components used in our app. Of course, if we use text from UI Kitten. So another great example would be a border radius, such as we can also define a border radius that should be used globally in our app. Let's try make it 8. Everything is quite rounded, I'd say, but let's try maybe bigger. Yeah. And we also can make it square by passing 1. Well, this is something that I really like. Well, yeah, that was about an example of usage of UI Kitten. So just to summarize all of that, let me explain why do we actually need to rely in UI kits in our app. So to answer this question, let me show you one screenshot of the app that I had a chance to build for a startup company which specializes in medical services and veterinary. So this is the screenshot of our first phase when the app got actually released. And this is how it looks now. So I had a chance to build that for less than 2 months, of course, for its first iteration. And now the entire code base contains more than 50 screens, which is actually really cool. And what did it make it so profitable and successful for business to grow is that the customer actually didn't rely that much on building user interfaces. And it helps us a lot to not focus on building user interface, and try to build as much business logic as we could that time. The usage of UI kits and heavily relying on the design rules gives us, first of all, consistent user interfaces. The second, by reducing our development efforts, we also reduce the cost of front-end development for our customers. And the last one, it gives us a possibility to focus on the important things, on not just building UI blocks. Yeah. So, well, that was it, I guess. Thank you for watching. I hope you will build awesome user interfaces, and I hope you really enjoyed the talk. And I could share you as much information about Eva-related products as I could. So you can find me on Twitter if you want. It's presented at the slide below, at the bottom of the slide. So please approach me if you want. And yeah, if you have any questions, please write them in our chat so I can answer them. So thank you.